Yeah, maybe we could say something about, because Brian, he was talking about how all art is political, and of course in one sense we can say that because every art work is participating in some sort of political economy somehow, but the other pieces of art we have seen before is taking a more active stand, like trying to provoke some actions or engaging people in political work, more concrete. And this is, I would say, another type of political action, which is perhaps more similar to the political term of Jacques Rancière, in the way that he says that an artwork becomes political when it shows us how things can be put together in a new way, assembled, and So maybe you could say something about the differences of, like, the concept of political art.
Yeah, I think that it is, of course, that all art is.
That's the very important.
That all art is certainly political, and that different projects are differently sensitized to that fact about themselves. Some might repress that fact more than others, but everything is putting forward some vision of what the world might be when they put symbols out into the world. I think that in these cases, I think that there's partly an effort to sensitize people to what it means to be part of a shared world first. And in Hito's work, I think a lot of the sensitization is around sensitizing us to our own sort of numbness in the face of media saturation, and bringing that numbness, the experience of our own numbness, to consciousness before you could do anything, before you could make a political statement at all, that you would be sensitized to that. And with Paul's work, and again, for me, I'm often, very concerned. I think about how fabulous it is to be in this public library and to be supported here by, I guess, different funding sources, but including your public art fund. That it is in part about provoking people to be sensitized to the systems on which they depend. And for me, that little tiny park just helps you even notice that you have parks, that the park, something that has become habit and naturalized and something that is in your world only because it's been sustained, actually comes to consciousness first. And so to me, it's about creating conditions for sensitizing citizens. It might be something that unifies both projects, even though they're very different sensibilities.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add about this library that I think is actually really quite special. I don't know if you know this, but everybody that works here goes home at 6 o'clock, and people who have a key can come in until 11 o'clock. So they are here on their own. Unfortunately, we had this problem with the little kids, but that's just that. Yeah, exactly. But I think it's really quite extraordinary, and this is an area that is it's a lot of mixed cultures here, and the people who work here say it's working amazingly. It works really, really well. So I just wanted to let you know.
I mean, if I can.
One moment, please.
But to say, sorry. I think that is so interesting about what the key does. Thinking about this tiny, deciding to think about what a key is. Of course, it's something that usually locks and creates a boundary between my property and your property. And instead to actually decide that to give people keys and with them a certain kind of responsibility to care, because this space is yours. I think that it's really interesting to think about what it is to activate that process and that commitment to care, as much as you think about about what it is to care for this building, as much as you would think about what it is to dismantle this building.
Yes, Marius.
I think it's a problem for me when we say that all art is political. or if we say that we are all activism, no? And it's not, I mean, in one sense it's not so difficult to say this. I mean, we can all agree and so on, but then we come, we have a problem that it's very relativistic. We don't get any discussion if we start to talk like this, no? And I think I often use the word political, not politics, but political, to describe something that is in opposition to the politics, you know, which is ideologically dominating and has, well, we could call it hegemonical dominance, no? And I think whatever is in opposition to this could be terms. Activism is obviously something that wants to act and change in the world, some activity, human activity. I think we can agree on probably. And then political means something that aims to, in my view, you know, if just have a discussion, something that aims to change the politics, to invent a new politics or a different politics. No?
I forget who it was who said, yes, all art is political. That's a good answer, but that's also the end of discussion once you say that. So, but and I really did mean it when I say that some are more and less self-conscious about that fact, about what they're doing when they're in the world. I also really appreciate how you modified that for you, political art is about counter politics, you said at the beginning, but then at the end you said it's maybe about imagining a new politics. And I really think that part of the act is really important too. That it might sometimes the more radical thing might actually to believe in politics in some cases. You know, I'm coming from, you know, the land of Donald Trump, where there's a way that the anti-political gesture is a huge part of how that person aspires to become a politician is in his anti-politics. So I'm just, I really think about trying to imagine new political structures as well.
Thank you. And we might even say that, although it's not, it might be problematic to say that all art is political, but also that we somehow seem to talk about political art as it was just, in general, a good thing. But I think we agree on this, mostly when we agree with the politics of the art and not like when it's fascist art. So we have a few more questions.
So I would follow up on this point by going back to the beginning of your presentation, where you said instead of dismantling the master's house, I'm going to try to repair what's leaking and what's not functioning, which is what also Brian emphasized, that people, in my opinion, I mean, they are not ready to give up their current situation. They're not ready to give up where we live, actually. And in this way, art could contribute in not only changing the current situation, but creating a new model and a new system which might work and might not work. You know, but it all goes back to the roots of that people are afraid to lose what they have been building for 30 or 40 years, and it's all attached to the, of course, monetary system and the capitalism, and it's pretty hard to make an impact on a global level unless we give the people the chance to contribute themselves to a new solution. And this was also my comment to the presentation as well. It's actually both connected. That how can you give the means to people so that they can create what's it called? Yeah, they can create a platform to express themselves. In this way, the effect would be on the person himself or themselves. It would be much greater than just seeing a video and somebody is expressing their opinions. Thank you.
So we're waking up. We have 3 more questions, and we're running out of schedule, but I will stretch the time limit a bit. Yeah, okay. Camilla.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I can follow up on Yasser's comment, because the two artists that you pulled out, I mean, they're quite different and work in very different ways. And there's no doubt that Tito Sterle's work is very interesting. But just to make it very short about her work, she also works very much within the institution and has decided also to stay within the art institution and relate to that. Also using a very, what shall I say, art-oriented or academic kind of language, not communicating with people outside of that context, really. While the other artist, Paul Jonas, Ramirez Jonas, I mean, he uses a totally different kind of language. And what is very interesting about that work is basically the question of, is it then up to art to reclaim public space as well and give the public space kind of back to people and make them aware that there has been a public space and maybe they should reclaim the public space, which people are already doing, but art could contribute to that in a way. So I think catching up on Yasser, I mean, that's much more giving, opening up for people also to have a possibility of having a voice in the new discussion and maybe, well, finding something for the future.
I'll just, if you want to search for Paul's most recent project, it is called Public Trust, and I didn't have time to, obviously, from the short talk today. But if you want to look it up, I would say that in some ways it enacts even more what you're describing right now, or attempts to do that. People are making public promises in public to each other is the main structure of the piece, and it's it's interesting.
So I will just give the word to two last questions.
Yes, thank you for a nice speech. I just wondered if you could comment on your use of feminism and the concept of feminism. And you said, these two artists represent ways of thinking it. And I just think that would be really, it's always interesting to renew that. Yeah.
I'm so aware of what I didn't get to talk about, and still sorry about the time. I think when I think about feminist trajectories in art and in activism, I often think of it as, different issues provoke different strategies. And the whole orientation around visibility and image is one kind of feminist politics that I think that you can sometimes group certain kinds of genealogies to be reductive in that strain. And to me, it is slightly different than a feminist practice that is focused more on what you could say are sociality, or on domesticity, or on maternal care. That the different, you could say it's a different, different sense of where the sexism is, and that the place of women as image and as body image is slightly different from the place of women as perpetual caretaker. And so I'm also interested in feminist practices, whether they're performed by men or women or however they identify themselves, that actually have something that kind of try to give an aesthetic elevation to the practice of care. And that is a slightly different feminist trajectory. And you could imagine more, too, other than those two.
Thank you, Shannon. So last question now?
Yes. Thank you for your speech. Again, I'm busy more with the economics of art in public space. For myself, it has been a you can say a challenge, a meeting the policymakers and those in power that make the decision about the distribution of public money for different types of art projects related to public space. I haven't much done work specifically related to public space, but I have this experience of the power. Those sitting in power go as far as putting the word into the mouth of the artist. And I don't think it's something normally necessarily like specific to Norwegian. I think it's more something that can be characteristic for many Western European countries. Ballet is getting 10 or 20 times more money than folklore or folk dance or whatever, and so in trying to use art to redefine and further understanding of the public space and to bring back the public space into the hands of the people on one side, and on the other side the dependency of the artists on because we're supposed to work within the frames, within the fences of the system. We are dependent on those money, and thank you.
Okay. So, thank you so much for that comment, because it's also one of those things. Oh, how easy for you, American, to come here and say, oh, you Scandinavian countries that have all this public art money. This is the other side of it, of course, that there's censorship around public art money, et cetera. So I think it's, I'm in this mode right now where I'm trying to really think about different kinds of money and what different kinds of currency, which might include barter systems as well, what different kinds of currency enable. And I've had really interesting stories that forced me to question my principles from artists based in different countries about a certain kind of freedom, including political freedom, that comes to them if they engage in for-profit systems or in philanthropic money, that philanthropic money provides a different sense of possibility. So sometimes I'm just sort of interested in, given that there won't be a pure position in any particular project or decision, to have a kind of frank discussion about what different kinds of money enable or don't enable. There are a certain collection of artists in the United States right now that are using their art career, to invoke the commitment to selling art at high level prices, to then subsidize their community projects. So it's a kind of take it from here and use it over there. So what do we think about that? Again, this is what I'm trying to think about it as a system first, and before any particular model is celebrated or denigrated.
Thank you very much. So then politics is somehow also about distribution and redistribution, not only of money, but also about visibility, invisibility, and who is able to speak and be heard, not only as noise, but also as articulations and voices. So thank you, Shannon.